Hold on. I gotta get ready for this one. And you'll see why in a second. Okay. We gotta talk about Thunderbolts. Now that I'm like in costume, now that I'm ready, okay? We gotta talk about Thunderbolts because I've been sitting on this. I've seen it twice in theaters already. I'm seeing it again in theaters now, which is possible because I have AMC A-List and I highly recommend AMC A-List. It's, if you like to go see at least 2 movies a month, or if you think that you can justify seeing 2 movies a month, AMC A-List pays for itself, okay? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Thunderbolts. I'm in love with this movie. I'm in love with this movie because it has done a couple things that are really, really impressive and really, really important. Number 1, it's funny. I don't care what you say. It's funny. The banter is incredible. The banter between the cast of the Thunderbolts, the way that they interact with each other, the toning of the movie to let them just like sit in that banter and chat. Like, I really don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to try really hard, but this is your warning. There may be some minor spoilers. I'm not going to give anything away, but we have to talk about this movie because we just have to. Okay, I am clearly a Bucky Barnes fan. 100%. There's no denying it. I am a Winter Soldier fan. So my one critique of this movie is that there wasn't enough Winter Soldier. There's never enough Winter Soldier. You could have an entire movie that is the Winter Soldier. And unless we are actively following Bucky as the protagonist, I'm not going to be content. And even then, I'm still going to want more because I want more. I just want more. I want all of his history. I want his flashbacks. I want to see the pain and the growth and the quiet moments, right? We got a little snippet, a little taste of his daily life after he got rid of the conditioning, right? We got a little bit of that in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But here's the problem. I want him to be a title character and have his own movie, right? He has had Captain America, where he's been a side character, Captain America the Winter Soldier, where even though he was listed in the title, he was the antagonist, so it was not really, there was not enough background about him. I want more, right? And then we have him in Civil War, which is great. We got more of it in Civil War, but he's still was not a main character, which, to be fair, that's a massive ensemble cast. But Steve and Tony were definitely the main characters. And what I want is to follow Bucky. And I'm so hopeful that in the future movies from Marvel, we will get more and more main character Bucky energy because he's Bucky. And the fan base is incredible and strong. I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I'm not the only one who would go about making a Bucky Barnes coat just so I can wear it whenever it applies. Anyway, moving on. Back to Thunderbolts, right? The things that they did really, really, really well. Again, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers. The things that they did really well. 1, the themes of this movie are extremely relevant to today's audiences. And this is not the first time that Marvel has taken a deep dive into mental health crises. But this is the first time that they're handling it in such a way that it's done with care and not with a buck up buttercup kind of mentality. What we've seen with Tony Stark in the past and all of his trauma, right? Tony Stark is one of the absolute best depictions of PTSD on any sort of massive film media screen, right? On a large screen like this, Tony Stark is one of the best depictions of PTSD that we've ever seen. However, the depiction that he got is still very based around, well, that's just life, you have to deal with it. Get over it. Get over yourself and just deal with it. Get better, which is just simply not how mental health works. You need people around you to be a good support system, and you need people around you who will help you through things so that you can have the space and the time to heal the things that are causing issues. So that is thing one that Thunderbolts does really, really well, is that it leans into this is a epidemic that is happening in our culture, where that emptiness is something that people feel. The apathy, the depression, the lack of desire to do anything, and the lack of meaning in life. Those are all things that are not unique to any one person in this world. And so I love that Marvel has taken that and put it on the big screen to start that discussion, or continue that discussion, or just reestablish that discussion, just to bring it back, right? Because that's always going to be an important discussion. So that's thing one that I love that they did. Thing two, Yelena. I love her. She's so fun. And she is getting the characterization that we all deserved with Natasha, but that we never got with Natasha because of the time of production. When Marvel got big, the way that Scarlett Johansson fought through years and years and years of being a very specific archetype of a character to try to bring Natasha Romanoff any characterization, any depth that wasn't just she's hot and she can hit people, right? She is incredible for, I mean, to bring this into perspective, Scarlett Johansson walked so that Florence Pugh could run, right? She set the stage so that Florence could do what she's doing right now and be so beloved as Yelena. What we have with Yelena would not have been possible without Scarlett Johansson. So I'm very, very happy that we're seeing that sort of development, especially from a company like Marvel, especially on this larger scale. I mean, as much as I want Bucky to be the main character of the Thunderbolts, I'm very glad that Yelena is. It's a very, very fun take on things. Plus, other than the Black Widow movie, I'm having a really hard time of thinking of Marvel shows or movies where we've successfully had a female lead as the lead. I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments, and if I'm missing things. I mean, because we have Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was a good one. The Marvels, we had female leads, but that one kind of flopped. It was decent. It was fine. It was fun, but it wasn't anything earth-shattering, you know? What are the other ones that we've had recently? Because we had the Black Widow movie. Are there others? Black Panther with Shuri. But yeah, the fact that it takes me that much thinking to come up with that very limited number, I'm very happy to see Yelena succeeding in the way that she is. So that's another thing that I love about what they did with Thunderbolts. Next thing. Next thing, number 3, right? Bob. Bob is delightful. Bob. I don't think I need to go into that because that was a fantastic first-time experience in the theater to just see Bob. That's it. But that's all I'm saying about that because I want you to have that first-time experience when you watch this movie for the first time of being like, Bob. Moving on. Now, this is where it comes down to the writing, and this is one of the things that made the Thunderbolts so successful. Everything following Endgame and Infinity War, where we had this massive lead up to this whole world-threatening event. There's this phenomenon that I've talked about in the past, and I talk about it a lot in my Percy Jackson review videos, so if you haven't heard me talk about it there, welcome. But the problem with raising stakes and increasing suspense, especially in a series, this is something that all writers of series run into, is that the first book of the series has to set a precedent, and then after that, the next stories all have to increase the stakes somehow, especially in a collected story. So we see this with all of the individual standalone superhero movies, starting back with Iron Man, right? It's Tony against himself, really, because he created the weapons that he's fighting against. So it's Tony against himself. This is a very small-scale problem. Granted, Tony's on a larger scale because it's global weapons manufacturing, but it's still not like some circles would hear about this dilemma or this conflict, but not everybody in the whole world would hear about this dilemma or this conflict or this problem, right? This is how we start small. This is a good way to start small. Those stakes are still incredibly high because they're very personal to Tony, but they're still smaller stakes. As we progress, right? I mean, Captain America, the Tesseract, the first Avenger, we're going way back to the first Avenger, that storyline had global implications. But again, not everybody knew, only the people who knew Steve, right? So Captain America, he goes down in history. Eventually he wakes up and he makes some headlines again. But it's not like the whole world was watching him at that point. The man was able to have a punching bag to himself in a gym at some point of the day. I guarantee he couldn't do that by the events of Avengers Endgame, right? Like, his step into the public sphere was clear and evident and obvious. And so he had to have some of this, some things change when you're suddenly in the public light. But as earth-shattering as that fight was, because it was also in the midst of World War II, I think. I'm so bad at history. Don't question me. It's fine. You can correct me if you want. I admit that I'm probably wrong. Anyway, because it was on a global stage already, because of the war that he was fighting, he had some of that notoriety, but that faded as time went on, right? And so we're starting with all of these really small, very personal, maybe some people outside of the circles, but mostly it's just like very specific circles know about the stakes of these stories. And then as this grows, you get to the Avengers, where you have New York, all of New York being invaded by these aliens. And then you have the Avengers showing up, and nobody knew who they were. That was the very first time that anybody had really seen them, right? I mean, there's this scene where the police are trying to figure out what on earth they're supposed to do with these aliens invading. And you get Cap just dropping in on a taxi and being like, okay, I need this, 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 and this. And they're like, why should we trust you? And then he takes out like 6 of the aliens, 6 of the Chitauri, all in one go. And they're like, okay, cool, we did this, this, and this, right? And like they follow his instructions. That would not be the case. I mean, obviously he proved himself, but he wouldn't have needed to prove himself in Endgame, right? So we're still on a smaller scale. People didn't know who he was. Now they know who he is. So as the story goes on, right, so now we're like small individual Tony Stark at his mansion, and then we go into all of New York, right? That's a much larger scale. As the plot continues, what Marvel had to do is that they had to keep increasing the stakes. And one of the best ways to continue increasing the stakes and raising the stakes is to make the target larger. So now we had New York, which is one city. Then we had all of Sokovia, which is one whole country. Are you seeing what I'm seeing here with Avengers Ultron, Age of Ultron? And then with Infinity War, guess what? It's not just Earth. It's tons of other planets. It's tons of other spaces, and it's specifically all of Earth, right? So we have this big threat that is applying to all of Earth. This is a big threat. This is bring in everybody you know who can fight kind of threat. So we raise the stakes even more. But once you've threatened the world, the only known universe, right? There's only so many places you can go up from there. The only ways that you can increase that target to make the stakes feel even more powerful is to go even bigger, better, stronger, higher. Which is why we've had the entire multiverse plot line. That gets really complicated when all of the multiverse is at stake because we already saved the world. We've proved we can save the world, right? When the multiverse is at stake, that is much harder to make that feel personal for your audience, which is part of why this most recent phase of Marvel has been, for lack of a better word, uninspired in the fans, right? People are not connecting with these stories as much because they're on such a large scale. We've lost that personal touch. So this brings me back to Thunderbolts. Why is Thunderbolts having the cultural impact that it's having, where people who haven't gone to see a Marvel movie in 2 or 3 years are like, okay, fine, I'm going to go see a Marvel movie again. I'm going to get all excited. I'm going to wear my coat to go see a Marvel movie, right? Why is Thunderbolts having that impact when it's not one of the larger names? Part of it is because it's not one of the larger names. I mean, Bucky is the most well-known person in this entire cast. Everybody else had minor side character back roles, sometimes antagonists in previous movies, mostly antagonists in previous movies and or shows, right? So nobody else in this cast except for Bucky is extremely well known. They've all been in the shadows doing things in the background that have impacted our main characters, but that are not, they're not good guys, which is kind of the whole point. They've never had their main character moment, which is also kind of the whole point. So we have all of this whole cast of people who are side characters and antagonists from previous shows all pulling together to make this main cast. in their characterization, which does a few things really, really well. One, it provides characterization for all of those side characters who maybe didn't get the chance to go deep in the past. They get to go deep in Thunderbolts. So you get to see who these people are, not just the archetype that they're playing, but you get to see who these characters are. That is part of what makes it so relatable. Another thing that makes it so relatable is that we also have a small scale threat. The threat in Thunderbolts is specifically to a portion of New York City, right? When Void does what Void does and people start vanishing into the shadows, you get this really beautiful, very, very literary in a lot of ways, symbolism of people giving in to the darkness, which is the whole theme of this movie. We see that with the opening lines, with Yelena having her moment of why does any of this matter? Does anything matter at all? What is the point of being alive in some ways, right? You have that monologue in the very beginning, and then you have this battle of people falling into this darkness that they can't fight their way out of. You can't fight your way out of this. There's no way out of that void by fighting. And it's a beautiful symbolic thing, right? But again, it's a very small scale threat. We're back down to part of Manhattan. It's a small enough scale that it feels relatable. Plus, it's a thing that most people have dealt with, right? Even if you've never been depressed, you've probably experienced some form of apathy. You've probably experienced some harder days where it's like, okay, I don't really want to get out of bed and do what I have to do, but I'm going to anyway. It's a relatable storyline with a very relatable problem that needs to be solved somehow. And the proposed solution to solving this issue, right, this loneliness, this darkness, is friendship. And it is such a lovely story with fun fight scenes, interesting characters, witty banter. And that's part of why it works so well. That's part of why the phenomenon is what it is because it's because they took the big story, the big thing that we have to deal with again, and they made it relatable, and they made it small enough that we can actually talk about it and enjoy it. And that's created all of this hype. It's the things that we loved about early Marvel, and it's back, which is why the fan base has really kicked back into gear with this movie in particular. It's brilliant. Additionally, what they're doing with the marketing is really brilliant, but I can get into that at a later time. If you want me to make a video on that, let me know and I will, happily. The marketing for Thunderbolts has been very interesting to watch, especially as a marketing manager. The branding, how they're doing interviews, when they're doing interviews, when it's all releasing, the kinds of things that they're talking about. I could go into it in a whole other video, so maybe I will. If you want to see it, let me know. But the thing that made this plotline work, again, I told you before, and I definitely mentioned this in my Percy Jackson review videos, especially of this most recent trilogy, the senior year trilogy, right? You take this large scale threat, you tone it down to a very personal story. The threat that Yelena is facing up against with Void, that the rest of the Thunderbolts are facing with Void, that threat is something that Yelena has been personally struggling with in her own inner life. And it's no longer a story about good versus evil. It's a story about how do we move forward in the midst of pain. And that is a very necessary and very relatable story. And it's brilliant because it takes that large scale story and it puts it into a small enough frame that we can all actually do something with it, rather than the multiverse being in danger. Whether we live in a multiverse or not is not up to me to know. It's also nothing that I need to worry about, right? If I'm creating an alternate timeline, there's no way that I will ever know that I'm creating an alternate timeline. That makes no difference to my daily life. But being told, hey, maybe you should text your friends, that makes a difference in my life and the lives of my friends. So if you have not seen Thunderbolts yet, please do. It is so good. It is worth the time. It's one of the most recent movies ever that I'm like, I wanted there to be more. It felt like it went too fast. One of the other things actually as well that they did that's very interesting, and I realized this on my second watch through, is that the entire plot of the movie takes place in approximately 48 hours. Probably less. but I think it's somewhere between 24 and 48 hours. It is a very small amount of time, which is also part of I think what makes this movie feel so impactful, is that we're not globe-trotting, we're not trying to track what's happening in like location and time and space. It's not this global scale. Again, it's just in the US. You can get Red Guardian goes to pick them up in his limo. He drove all night, but he got there in his limo, right? Like he drove it. He didn't have to fly it. They don't have the resources. They don't have Tony Stark, right? It's not like they have a Queen jet. They're just a bunch of guys in this really beat down limo just trying to go places. And it's hysterical to me. I adore it. But the storytelling that you can do in a 48-hour period of time as well is very interesting. And that's the kind of thing that I would like to try to explore in my own writing, is how do we take an entire plot of a book and put it, what do you include in a book when you're doing no time jumps? How do you make sure that everything that happens in the day is worth including? But that's also part of why the pacing of this movie is so deliciously fun. I think some people are a little annoyed at how slow some of those scenes are, where it's like, okay, they're climbing up this elevator shaft for how long now? They're bantering. Why are we sitting in this car with them while they're bantering? But we get to see those moments in that 24-hour day where they're like, yep, this is just how we got to get there somehow, so we're just going to sit in the back of this car and chat. It's hilarious. It's good. It's brilliant pacing because it really makes the timing feel more plausible, I think. So anyway, like I was saying, if you have not seen Thunderbolts yet, you should go see Thunderbolts. It is absolutely worth seeing. Again, I've seen it twice. I'm going to go see it a third time. I'll probably see it a fourth time. And once it's on Disney Plus, you can bet I'm going to be streaming it multiple times again, because it's just that kind of movie where I'm still getting things out of it. I'm still noticing other things. The artistic things with the light and the dark and the theming of that with the void is so cool. And if you pay attention to when things are light and when things are dark, you're getting a lot more out of this movie as well. So from a film perspective, it's incredibly well done. From a artistic perspective, it's incredibly well done. From a writing perspective, it's incredibly well done. And from an acting perspective, it is incredibly well done. There is, again, my only critique for this movie is that I wanted more Bucky. And that's personal preference, because Bucky he is possibly my favorite character of all time, right? Personal preference aside, this movie is phenomenal and you should go see it. And I'm not just saying that. I just gave you 20 plus minutes of reasons why this movie is so good without hopefully giving you any spoilers. I hope you've enjoyed this review, kind of just talking about Thunderbolts. It's not exactly a review. It's kind of a review. It's my thoughts. It's why you should go see it. It's why this movie is important right now and why it's working and doing what it's doing. It's not just because it's the next Marvel movie. It's pulling its weight. I love that so much. If you enjoyed these ramblings of mine, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe and turning that notification bell on so that you know when I post something. I do story reviews, so I do movies, books, TV shows, video games when they're applicable, from a writer's perspective. I've been studying writing for over a decade. I work in the publishing industry as the director of marketing for a small publishing house, and I love stories. I love stories. So if you enjoy this as well and you want to sit down and chat with your friends, but you can't find your friends to listen to about that specific thing, I get it. And that's why I started this channel, so that I can talk about the things that are on my mind and really just rave about the things that I love. So if you want to do that with me, I would love to have you join me. You can find me at author JJ Hanna on pretty much every platform, and I have my own short fiction that I write on my blog at authorjjhanna.com. And until next time, I'll see you then. Goodbye.